Hello everybody, this is Whiskey River and this is a Path of Titans video about the Tyrannoitan versus Gigas, and this is gameplay on the Arazoa server as usual. And in this video I wanted to talk a little bit more about using the Tyrannoitan to fight Gigas in the realism servers. I do have another video out called Titan versus Giga, and I go into some of the basics, and it was right after the Titan first came out, and I had some fights with Gigas on deathmatch, and then since then I've encountered a lot of them in game, and there's been some changes a little bit. There has been some adjustments to the Titan and also possibly to the Gigas stats on the Arazoa server, so it could be a little bit different now. But after experiencing a lot of different scenarios, I've come up with a couple of different builds that I've used successfully to go up against the Gigas, and it really just depends on how they fight. There's the Tyrannoitan. One of the great things about it is that you can use a lot of different abilities, and there's different setups you can go with, and it'll affect the play style. And you know, there's certain builds that are really good to like kill a Rex, for example, but that same build isn't going to be good against fighting against two Gigas, for example. So you got to be kind of careful, because you can get sort of stuck with a build that may not be the best for what you're about to face. So I've kind of come up with a couple of different ones. I found that the blood soaked is almost necessary when you're fighting most things, because you need your stamina, especially against Gigas. Against the bigger, slower stuff, you can use fresh blood because you can get that extra damage, but I found with Gigas especially, you do need the stamina, because if they run you out of stamina, the good ones will tail ride you. And if you get tail ridden, if you've ever played the Tyranno, you know the turn radius is atrocious on it. So you gotta have your stamina so that you can do your hit and run. But in this, against these two, I was using the blood soaked plus the terrifying presence for the defense, and then also the dash, so that I could get away from them and try to let the bleed work a little bit. If they chase you around a lot, then you can use blood chilling terror and use the bleed, but it's a long, kind of annoying, frustrating game. So I like to use the terrifying presence so that I could be a little more aggressive, and I try to go in and hit when I have it active and let them bleed when it's cooling down. But that charge bite's very dangerous on the Gigas, so you've got to really be careful and try not to get yourself into a position where they're both hitting you at the same time. You want to try to make it where you want to be running one of them as much as possible, and you target that one the whole time. You do have to get them bleeding, both of them bleeding though, because otherwise if you don't, the one that's not bleeding is going to run you around while the other one either sits off the bleed or at least just stays stationary to mitigate the bleed's effectiveness. So at the very beginning of these fights, I usually try to get some bites on both of them to get them bleeding, and then I try to get them running around a little bit. So like this one here, it's perfect. He's charging after me. That's what I want. I'm not bleeding, and he is, so the more they're running, the better off I am. And I'm using the blood chilling terror call here, so I'm going to try to get him to start bleeding as much as possible. I've got to be extra careful here though, because I don't have the terrifying presence. I don't have the damage reduction, and that can be dangerous for me. The other thing is this is a Terry, and so you might have seen there's a moderator telling me I've got to stay engaged. Now, I was only running for about 30 seconds, and with the Tyrannoitan, you've got to be able to kite them to get your bleed to work. Otherwise, if you just stand there in between two Gigas that are, you know, face tanking you, you're going to lose unless they're biting each other, which most of the good Gigas don't do that. So it's kind of tricky, the Terry on these. I don't know how you're supposed to kite and bleed stuff and still stay quote unquote engaged. To me, if they're bleeding, I'm engaged, but it's just a fine line, I guess. It depends on the moderator that's watching. But I turned around and hit him as soon as he told me to engage, and I think I was fine because I never got any kind of follow-up. And those guys said that they made a ticket on me, so I think it was good engagement. You can't run around for too long, but you do need to run around long enough to kite them so that they can bleed. See, like if they're chasing and using charge bite like that, that's really good because that's expending their stamina and it's getting the bleed to, it's maximizing the effectiveness of the bleed because running makes the bleed do more damage to them. So that's what I want. I want them bleeding as much as possible. On this one, I am using the blood chilling terror again, but and they can both work. Both the calls can work. It just kind of depends on how you want to do it. But I really do think you need the blood soaked so that you don't run out of stamina because you're going to be doing a lot of running to get your hit and runs in. I still have yet to beat the really good Gigas, the guys that just focus on playing Giga all the time and they know what they're doing. They're very, very tricky to beat. They don't fall for your tricks. They don't run with bleed. And they're very good at dodging your heavy bites, and then they can get you with charge bites. And so they can be really, really difficult. But the nice thing is on the Tyrannoitan is that you can always get away. So if you feel like the fight isn't going your way, you can always just forecall and run away. Or if it's a hunt, you can typically run away and get away with your dash, and then you have much better speed than they do. So usually you can get out of line of sight of them and get away. So that's the nice thing about the Tyrannoitan against Gigas, that it's an advantage the Tyrannoitan has that the Rex doesn't have. When I used to play Rex, the one thing that was annoying about the Rex is that if you encounter two Gigas on a Rex and they want to fight, you have to fight them. There's no running away. So at least with the Tyrannoitan, you can dictate the battle a little more. You can determine where you fight, when you fight, and that. And if you need to get out, you can get out. So it's a little more versatile than the Rex in that way. But the really good Gigas, like I said, if there's two of them, I'm not sure. It's very, very tricky to beat them if they're full health and they know what they're doing. So I would just say pick your battles wisely. You can tell usually pretty early on in a fight if you're going to win it or not. And if it looks like it's not going your way, I would get out as soon as possible, especially if you're in a hot spot or an area where you might get third partied, because that's bound to happen sooner or later. This is a 1v1 against a really good Giga player. I've seen this person in deathmatch quite a bit, and I know they know what they're doing, so I was playing it really, really safe. I was just, in this case, I was using what I call the more annoying build on the Tyrannoitan. It's not really the one I prefer. It's the blood chilling terror with the blood soaked, and you basically just get, you chip them with bleed bites, and then you just run them around. You get a heavy bite in here and there, but mainly you've got to let the bleed work. And it's annoying because it just takes a long time, and you spend a lot of time running away and dashing away and kiting them. And that's just really not a fun play style for me. It kind of feels cheap in a way, but that is the play style of the Titan. And if they decide that it's not allowed to kite for 30 seconds, then I probably just won't be doing any terries. Even with Terrifying Presence, the more aggressive build, you still have to kite quite a bit. So we'll just have to see what comes down from the moderators on that. Another thing I wanted to mention is on the previous video, I said that you can't face tank a Giga. Now, if you were just to stand head to head and start trading bite for bite, and you got in a heavy bite every time it cooled down, you probably would win that face tank. But what I meant was that if you stand there and do that, the Giga's not going to let you do that. They're going to get around behind you, and they're going to get in this area like this one is here, where they get in that spot right behind you where you can't turn to hit them, but they will be hitting you. So you don't want to try to face tank a Giga. On a Rex you can, because you can bone break them and get them stationary, but on a Tyrannoitan you have no way to keep them stationary, so you don't want to attempt a face tank, just to clarify that statement from my previous video. Got a little too far away from him there, but I was able to land that heavy bite before he fully stood up, so that did some serious damage to him. When you're kiting them, that's the danger, is if you get too far away, they can sit down, and then if they sit down, that's going to help mitigate their bleed. So you want to try to kite them, but yet not get too far away so that they have an opportunity to sit down. But if you can bait them to sit down and then hit them, like I did with that guy, then that'll obviously maximize your damage. But I mean, I'm just popping this call over and over again and just maximizing the bleed. And I can see the scarring in his face right there. And I figured he was going to 4-call, and there was finally the 4-call, so I let him go. It's a good fight. Like I said, I kind of feel bad doing those long, drawn out bleed fights because they're a bit annoying. I'd rather just fight and get it over with. The other build is the one that you see here where it's Terrifying Presence with Blood Soaked. You can use Fresh Blood for the extra damage, but I really think that the extra stamina comes in handy more than the extra damage does, but you can make either of them work. If the Gigas are smart, they will counter your Terrifying Presence with their Pain Inhibitor, and they'll just let your Terrifying Presence run out, and then they'll use their Pain Inhibitor. So you got to be careful with it and strategic with it, and you can make it work. And it's a little bit faster. You can get a lot more hits in, get a lot of heavy bites in when you have it in, active, and it'll be a quicker fight than the Blood Chilling Terror build. This build is less forgiving though, because if they're dodging you and they're waiting out your Terrifying Presence, then you're not going to have the DPS you need to finish the fight. So these guys kind of complicated things a little bit. They were trying to hunt me earlier on, and I wasn't full health, so I was able to evade them. Like I was saying earlier, you can use your speed on these things to stay away from them, so I did that. And I got away from them, and they couldn't hunt me. And then I guess they must have eaten, because at this point they just were territory challenging, the two black ones. And I was already engaged with this guy in a hunt, so we had to leave because we both 4-called. So we're leaving this POI to let them claim it, and then we're gonna go fight over here in another POI. So I'm doing the best I can here to get some hits in without taking return damage, and then also trying to stay engaged when I have my Terrifying Presence activated, like right here. The forest isn't ideal. It's probably given the Giga just a bit more of an advantage. I don't think this Giga was super experienced, because the good Gigas know how to use the superior turn radius, and they can be getting in and out of these trees and avoiding me, and it's going to be really hard for the Tyrannoitan to turn and keep up with the Giga in a dense forest like this. But this one was just trying to kind of face take me at this point, it looked like. So now I know he's bleeding probably to a max bleed, and I've got my buff available, so I know I can maybe get in for 1 or 2 more hits, but once that buff ends, I'm gonna have to let the bleed work. But I can see a lot of scarring on this guy, so pretty confident at this point that I've got this one in the bag. So I waited the buff call, activated it when it came back, and now I know I can go and be pretty aggressive, especially if he's running away. I know for sure. I mean, you can see all the scarring on him. I've got this one. It's another solo Giga where I was using the Blood Chilling Terror. So I've cut a lot of it out because there's a lot of the fight where I'm just running around and letting him bleed. And again, it's kind of boring doing that. It's not my favorite thing to do, but that's the way with that build that you have to do it in order to win it. The advantage of it though is that you're kiting a lot, so you're not taking as much damage throughout the fight. You can let the combat timer go out, and as long as you stay within line of sight and keep pressure on them, then you can actually heal in the fight while they're bleeding. So that's the advantage of it, but it's also at the same time a disadvantage because you're taking so long. It's more of an opportunity for a third party or for something else to happen along and either pick you off after you 4-call or third party you. So it's you got to kind of pick your poison. the other thing is, depending on how they play, like on this fight here, I would have been better off with fresh blood because I never really ran out of stamina. This player was not running a whole lot. They were kind of stationary most of the time, and you can see my stamina bar is full the whole fight. So I probably would have been better off with fresh blood and the terrifying presence in this fight. But again, like, you can never predict how a player is going to play, so you just never really know. The nice thing is you can make a lot of these different builds work for your play style. It's just that you can't predict how the other player is going to play. So, sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you don't have the ideal build. And it's very hard to predict what's going to happen. But the cool thing is that if you have a preference for one over the other, you can definitely make it work. So it's a very versatile dinosaur. And you can just lay down and sleep and then change your abilities out to customize the build to a given situation, as long as you can anticipate it happening. You don't always have that opportunity with the small fast things that jump you, but for the big slow things you can customize your build to and tailor it how you want it to fight the fight your way. So that's the video, guys. Hopefully you got something out of it. Please like and leave a comment, and I hope to see you out there in Gondola. Goodbye.